How was the Black Bruce Lee so legendary?
#1 fighter in the world. Come on, Bruce Lee. Godzilla.
Story is so amazing. I don't want that story to go into the dirt, and our people don't know who Manson Gibson is.
Bruce Lee once said that he fears not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but he fears the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Well, this is a man who practiced spinning back fists and spinning back kicks over 1 million times. Doing so made him the most feared spinning attacker of all time.
The spinning back fist best in the world.
With supreme confidence, he took the combat sports world by storm in the golden era of American kickboxing.
There's no fighter better than me in the world.
He's 49-0 in title defenses.
But he's also 97-6 overall record.
That's amazing.
5-0 Japan, 5-kick knockout.
The legend of the Black Bruce Lee is as legendary as it comes. He was so ridiculous that he won Muay Thai World Championships without ever practicing Muay Thai. At an 80% knockout ratio with 88 career knockouts, he is one of the greatest knockout artists of all time, earning him another legendary nickname, the Master Blaster. His name literally means that when he hits someone, he blasts them away. Most of his knockouts were achieved through high kicks, spin kicks, or spinning back fists. Perhaps even more impressively, he was one of the greatest masters of baiting. Look at how masterfully he based even legendary opponents in. Then how he masterfully blasted them away with a knockout blow. You see, all of the great masters deserve an in-depth study, and studying the great Black Bruce Lee will provide us with an epic blueprint of what is possible when we keep an open mind. With the right traits and attributes, as fans of Bruce Lee will say, no style is the best style. If there's one fighter who proves this true, it's this legend right here. Even though the Black Bruce Lee believes Muay Thai is the best style, he believes that he is the one who can beat them.
Thai style is okay, but in America, they think Thais are the best. There hasn't been an American fighter to beat a Thai since they'll cook. So now I am one. Thai is best style. Thai is best style. Best fighters in the world.
If you look at him and you say, what kind of style is that? And that's what's been the hardest thing for opponents, is to figure out Manson Gibson's style. He's pushing 100 professional fights, fighting fighters from all over the world, bar none. He's fought them all.
Although no one knew what style he was using, he did have his own style. So naturally, that makes fight fans curious. Why exactly was he called the Black Bruce Lee, and what did his style consist of? Just as Bruce Lee had a savage sidekick, the Black Bruce Lee had one of the best sidekicks in combat sport history. But above sidekicks, just one of his spinning back kicks can send legends flying back. With all of his timing and athleticism off the charts, he looked untouchable against many of the great champions of his time. Not even nut shots could faze him. From iron legs to iron nuts and an iron chin, this man had it all. What makes Manson Gibson so unique? Using spinning attacks more than any fundamental strike, no one in combat sports history has made these techniques work so consistently as a professional fighter. And the most epic part about all of this? The Black Bruce Lee was beating the greatest legends of his time with these crazy combinations. So how exactly did Manson Gibson destroy the monsters of his time? Most people might watch the Black Bruce Lee and think that this fighting style is impossible to replicate. While the Black Bruce Lee was certainly one of a kind,
I'm Manson, I'm an alien fighter.
it is possible for some people to emulate him with the right blueprint. And this is what this video is about, giving the public that knowledge.
All type of knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge.
To understand how the Black Bruce Lee fights, we must first understand how Bruce Lee thinks. Truly elite fighting is a combination of instinct and control, an integration of science and flow.
Natural instinct, and here is control. You are to combine the two in harmony. Not if you have one to the extreme, you will be very unscientific. If you have another to the extreme, you become all of a sudden a mechanical man, no longer a human being. So it is a successful combination of both.
Yin yang, eh?
Right, man, that's it.
The Black Bruce Lee was the ultimate yin-yang. He was so explosively hard when he needed to be, hitting so powerfully that they called him the Master Blaster for literally blasting his opponents away with a kick. He was also like water, dancing and spinning around with grace like a ballerina, something that no other fighter in history has attempted against so many legends.
Running water never grows stale, so you gotta just keep on flowing. I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
And that's exactly what Manson Gibson was. He can flow and he can crash, integrating the yin-yang that Bruce Lee was trying to articulate and show in his own martial arts expression. When Manson Gibson hits, he hits with absolute intent, just like Bruce Lee.
I mean, you gotta put the whole hip into it and snap it and get all your energy in there and make this into a weapon.
When fight fans see him for the first time, they can't believe what they're looking at. In our previous episode, people asked how it's possible for a man this great to have a hidden career. It is a real tragedy that most people don't know him today. Upon watching the Black Bruce Lee, new fans will say that they have never seen a Taekwondo and Kung Fu master so great. This episode is attempting to change this tragedy. We want to get more fight fans to appreciate this great man. But truly, if everyone just looked at his nicknames alone, we would understand how big of a legend he was. You see, these were some of the most epic nicknames in combat sports history. Fight fans, welcome back to another episode of Lawrence Kenshin Striking Breakdowns. This is the 5 legendary pillars of the Master Blaster. The Thai Slayer, the legendary Black Bruce Lee, Pillar 1, Iron Nuts. You might think this is a joke, but it's not. We are being very serious here. Manson Gibson versus Chan Man-suk. Due to the Black Bruce Lee having a super bladed stance, he is extremely susceptible to being nutshotted. You see, when you adopt a super bladed stance and throw a lot of side kicks or spin kicks, the groin area is very susceptible to being kicked by a roundhouse. Ironically, Bruce Lee believed that the bladed stance gives you better protection against groin strikes. This is certainly not true against the legendary low kickers that Gibson fought. However, the counter to this is having iron nuts. In this legendary match against an elite Muay Thai fighter named Chan Man-suk, you can see thunderous nut shots being landed. However, Gibson doesn't even flinch. He then continues kicking the Thai. This is very impressive because even one good nut shot can absolutely change the outcome of a fight. But due to having iron nuts, the thunderous shots did not affect Mr. Gibson, and he was eventually able to score a legendary spin kick knockout. But more on this later. So while you think it's funny that iron nuts is being discussed, it is absolutely critical to the 5 pillars that make the Black Bruce Lee legendary. Make no mistake about it, being unaffected by a thunderous roundhouse to the nuts is essential to the style of the Black Bruce Lee. Not everyone can do it, but the most courageous amongst us can. In Gibson's second fight against the Muay Thai legend Chang Phuoc Gyatsamrit, we learned how and why he has iron nuts.
Manson told me last night that he wears a cup that actually protects the entire groin area around over the thigh bone, a much larger cup, so when he takes those shots, it doesn't feel.
But no matter how hard a groin protector is, resilience against thunderous nut shots still depends on how hard a man's warrior spirit is. In this fight, during round 2, Gibson switches to Muay Thai shorts with blaster on it, and immediately adds 10 points to his spinning attacks. Chang Puk brushes them off like the legend that he is, and then proceeds to corner Gibson and roundhouses him to the nuts with a huge cup sound.
There's that sidekick. Oh, big left hook.
But this did nothing and only made Gibson start throwing back, with Gibson getting the better of the exchange. This fight again showed us why it's important to have iron nuts. Manson Gibson versus Ernesto Hoost. If you somehow don't know who this is the greatest heavyweight kickboxer of all time, the baddest man on the planet. In this fight, Gibson was able to keep Hoost away with a sidekick until Hoost punted him in the nuts, but Gibson fought on like he always does. Then when Gibson tried to spin kick, Hoost punted Gibson in the nuts again. This time, Gibson signalled that he finally felt the thunderous nut shot. Considering this is the most powerful low kicker in kickboxing history, this fight fully showcases just how iron Gibson's nuts are. Hoost himself cannot withstand big nut shots against legends in his career.
You know, those things don't break.
The Black Bruce Lee, however, felt a bit of it and still got up quickly like a champ. After the nut shot, Gibson tried to evade a roundhouse with a jumping left hook, which I've never seen before. Throughout the fight, Hoost continues to land several thunderous nut shots to Gibson and follows up with ruthless combinations. Despite this, it was an extremely close fight with many spectators thinking Gibson won the match. Manson Gibson versus Sajid Khan. In this fight, Gibson gets a thunderous nut shot as he was spinning around, but it doesn't matter. The Black Bruce Lee would score a perfect knockdown anyways. Incredibly, Gibson's balance wasn't even affected from the nut shot. This fight again showcases the iron attribute required to make this style work. That is, one must remain unaffected by a nut roundhouse in order to deliver a spinning kick. It's tragic that Gibson seems to always get hit to the groin. However, it's not always Gibson who gets nailed there. As the popular combat sports saying goes, sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail. From nut sweeps, nut knees, to nut kicks, he's done it all. My personal favourite is when he sidekicked Oliver Miller to the nuts and the ref somehow counted it as a knockdown. Manson Gibson versus Naoki Taira. This one fighter kept trying to wrestle with the Black Bruce Lee, but eventually Gibson had enough and was able to elevate the leg and bump his nuts to send him flying. Getting tired of the grappling, the Black Bruce Lee also kneed his opponents to the nuts. After a grueling match full of grappling, Gibson tried to finish Taira with a huge spinning kick. Okay, now that we have firmly established that Manson Gibson's style requires iron nuts to withstand thunderous nut shots, let's move on to the real fun stuff. The next legendary pillars involve the Black Bruce Lee being a grandmaster of baiting with his strikes. Pillar 2. Legendary sidekicks. Manson Gibson's sidekick is so good that it even earns the respect of legendary Muay Thai fighters. For some reason, a lot of people think sidekicks don't work. I have personally never met a good martial artist who thinks this, but it's also clear why it wouldn't work for a lot of people. Against a fighter with a strong Muay Thai and kickboxing foundation, the fighter who relies on sidekicks to control the distance will typically get his lead leg heavily punished by low kicks. This is because to continuously launch a good sidekick, the stance does need to be bladed. We can see this historically proven after arguably the greatest light heavyweight kickboxer of all time lost to Chang Puk Gyatsornre via low kicks. After this fight, he was coached by the legendary Muay Thai fighters and switched his stance from bladed to neutral. The same choice was made by Ernesto Hoost, going from a savate style to a powerful and stable style that prioritizes low kicks. The sidekick, of course, is different from the side teep that we often see in Muay Thai, which is launched from a more neutral stance. But even when Sam Mat is throwing the side teep repetitively, note that he is also in a much more bladed stance. So how exactly does the Black Bruce Lee get away with this? After all, nearly all of his peers transitioned away from the bladed stance in favour of the neutral stance in order to launch and defend low kicks. The answer is again in his name. He is the Black Bruce Lee. And to earn such a name, Gibson needed to be superhumanly explosive and lightning fast. Most of his opponents simply can't deal with his fast footwork, and ability to cover distance to land the sidekick. You see, Gibson can even chase opponents across the ring with one leg up in the air. Refusing to fight normally and control the distance with a jab, Gibson instead uses the sidekick as his jab. The even more ridiculous part about all of this is that Gibson is the only legendary fighter in the history of kickboxing to throw spinning attacks more often than he jabs. This is only possible with the help of his sidekick to deter his opponents. As you can see, he can fire the sidekick to the body or the face, sometimes threatening and hitting both targets before dropping his leg.
Oh,
and then
man.
utilize his sidekick to try to also keep his opponent off balance.
Take note how a lot of the time Gibson keeps his hands down. Add this to how he looks so annoying and so hittable. People just want to charge in and start throwing big shots. But that's exactly what Gibson wants. He's inviting the charge. And when they do finally charge, he'll blast the charge with a perfect sidekick. This is why he is the Grand Master of baiting. So why is it that most karate and taekwondo black belts get destroyed when they use sidekicks? This is because they do not have the explosive ability to land the sidekick in a bladed stance. As you might notice, it's simply much more efficient to optimize for stability and power in a neutral stance while slamming low kicks against anyone who chooses the bladed stance. Therefore, the rare fighters who can keep their stance bladed and keep using sidekicks must have superior explosive attributes compared to most fighters. Then, they must not be affected by the low kicks when they do land. As you've learned, if a thunderous nutshot cannot affect the great black Bruce Lee, imagine how hard the rest of his body is. If some of the greatest low kickers in history, such as Ernesto Hoost and Chang Puek Yason Rep, have trouble punishing Gibson to the legs, we clearly understand how spectacular he was. These two legendary fighters literally changed how kickboxers around the world fight, even to this day. While they did land low kicks on Gibson, he was able to score back with just as many sidekicks and even won rounds with them. At times, he can land 2 or 3 sidekicks in a row, and even finish a fight with just one sidekick. Evidently, being a grandmaster of sidekicks is a pillar to the style of the Black Bruce Lee. But the next legendary pillar is truly where he masterfully baits his opponents in to then masterfully blast them away. Pillar 3. Legendary spinning kicks and spinning fists. Now that we have established that iron nuts and legendary sidekicks are necessary to the style of the Black Bruce Lee, we can therefore go on to the funnest techniques. You see, once Gibson controls the distance with sidekicks as if it was his jab, the legendary spinning attacks are in play. Spinning kicks and spinning fists represent the flashiest and most powerful weapons in striking. Typically speaking, they are low in effectiveness and also high risk. But if a fighter can remain unpunished in a bladed stance, the spinning kicks and spinning fists become highly effective while carrying lower risk. As expected, Gibson gets nutshotted often from the spins as well. It still doesn't matter when he has legendary pillar 1. As you can see, this is why iron nuts is the foundational pillar to his style. With athletes I'm coaching, I tell them to study the Black Bruce Lee if they want to use a style which relies on spin fists and spin kicks. However, I caution them that they will require iron nuts on top of having a great groin protector. Regardless, everyone has the freedom to choose their style. So let's study how the greatest spinning hitter of all time does it. Notice that because Gibson stands bladed already, he can much more easily go into a spinning attack. As you now know, most fighters cannot defend against low kicks in a bladed stance. Landing spinning attacks from a neutral stance is simply much tougher, but once a fighter learns how to neutralize the low kick threat in a bladed stance, the opponents are now in the spinning attacker's web. Because most of his opponents have trouble reading the spinning attacks, they are often getting hit clean without the defenses in place. This is because in trying to chase down the Black Bruce Lee, it is difficult to keep a shield in the right places. A traditional guard is great for defending traditional strikes, but not so good against spinning strikes. As you may know, it takes a special fighter to knock down Ernesto Hoost, the baddest man on the planet. Note how the Black Bruce Lee walks himself into the corner with Hoost giving him pressure. He is in a bladed stance with a slight lean. This is him loading the spinning fist. When Hoos charged in with a low guard, Gibson was so explosive with his hip and core rotation that it just landed flush. Normally, this low guard would transition into a high guard to block the strikes, but Hoos didn't even visually register the spinning fist. When certain fighters face off against the Black Bruce Lee, they will try to block the kick with their knee and elbow. This was the case for Chang Puk Yetson-rit. However, the spinning back kick comes in so fast and precise that it sneaks right through. Against Daniel Dalask, the same thing happened. Except this time, Gibson set it up with a sneaky glove touch. Obviously, his opponent wasn't happy about this, but Gibson basically said, "It is what it is." He then proceeded to troll the opponent with offering more glove touches after. I know this turns a lot of people off, as it did with the crowd, but it's just something that comes with fighting Manson Gibson. As Bruce Lee would say,
When you're talking about fighting as it is, with no rules,
real fighting,
well then baby, you better train every part of your body.
and as Sun Tzu would say in Art of War, all warfare is based off deception. That is exactly what Manson Gibson fully embodies in having iron nuts and using the fake glove touch into spinning kick technique. Bruce Lee always believed in standing out against the crowd, so I guess this is what the Black Bruce Lee is doing too. In the fight against Chan Man-suk, we see the same defensive problem again. The Thai decided to rush in with a low kick, and while he initially dropped his guard and then raised it after, the hook kick went around the guard. You see, keeping hands up alone doesn't guarantee anything. It's all about keeping the hands up in the right places. The low kick landed but didn't even disrupt the balance of the Black Bruce Lee, again showcasing just how much of a freak athlete he was. Pillar 4. Whirlwind attacks and unpredictability. Now everyone knows that the Black Bruce Lee will throw spinning fists, spinning kicks and sidekicks, but it's extremely difficult to prepare for it. Why? Because he's so damn unpredictable with them. It goes back to this quote by Sun Tzu: "There are only 5 notes in the musical scale, but their variations are so many that they cannot all be heard. There are only 5 basic colours, but their variations are so many that they cannot all be seen. There are only 5 basic flavours, but their variations are so many that they cannot all be tasted. There are only 2 kinds of charge in battle, the unorthodox surprise attack and the orthodox direct attack, but variations of the unorthodox and the orthodox are endless. The unorthodox and the orthodox give rise to each other. Like a beginningless circle, who could exhaust them? By the way, this is why there's a circle in our logo." Like how Sun Tzu says, the variations of the Black Bruce Lee spinning attacks are endless. With orthodox and unorthodox giving rise to each other, his beginningless circles are endless and inexhaustible. You see, he doesn't just throw these strikes like a normal fighter. In fact, he often whirlwinds into them. Against Chan Man-suk, he can double spin kick into a dump. He'll also randomly pick up and carry them into the corner. Gibson can also spin kick into a back fist. By combining the spins together, because a spin all starts in the same way, it's hard to know exactly which spin he'd choose. If he fakes a spin back kick, the opponent's elbow will go low to try and block it. This is when he spins again and goes up top with a spinning fist, hitting flush. Sometimes he'll fake spin kicks and spin fists at the same time, showing both so that he can see what the opponent is defending against. Even more brilliantly, if he misses his spin kick, he'll throw a tornado left hook to follow up. In fact, he's even scored a knockout with this technique before. Even against Chang Puk Yetson-rit, Gibson can somehow ballerina in front of him and land a spinning back hook kick right after. This is exactly what Sun Tzu means when a variation is a beginningless circle. Manson Gibson is literally spinning around his opponents, making them not know what, when, where, how, or why a strike is coming. First he spins stationary with the spin fist, in almost slow motion. Chang Puk, however, respected whatever Gibson was doing and stood in place. That's when Gibson went ahead and landed a flush spinning kick to the head. In his fight against Corban, The legendary Muay Thai fighter, known for his historical matches with Ramon Dekkers, Gibson missed an explosive spin kick. Where most fighters would require a reset after a mission, not Gibson. The Black Bruce Lee missed another lunging tornado left hook to finally land a whirlwind spinning back kick. This is just absolutely ridiculous to think about how a fighter of Corbin's caliber could lose to a whirlwind of spinning attacks. When the Black Bruce Lee fought Ian Jacobs, he could spin around once to see which opening the opponent gave him, and he saw the body. Like any genius IQ striker would, that's exactly what he went for right after. Even more impressively, after he landed the spinning back kick, he kept his balance to go into another side kick mid-air before even dropping his leg. This sequence sent his opponent flying into the ropes, not once, but twice.
2 spins and finds the mark from Gibson.
Against Sajid Khan, another elite Muay Thai fighter, Gibson showed his incredible balance. After missing a spinning back kick due to Sajid Khan leaning back, Gibson will land a spinning hook kick as he spun around again. Miraculously, this is despite Sajid Khan landing a clean roundhouse to Gibson's nuts. This again shows just how iron Gibson's nuts are to be able to score a knockdown after getting hit there. Against Tosca Pedridis, Gibson again spun in place to see what the opponent would do. When the opponent went for a huge low kick, he missed as Gibson landed a perfect spinning hook kick to the head. Listen to what the commentator said about it.
Unbelievable spinning back kick.
Interestingly, this was after Gibson got thrown over the ropes by Jacobs. Visibly frustrated, Gibson was extra happy about landing these moves right after. Later in the fight, Gibson would spin around twice chasing Jacobs around the ring, until he spun once more to land the spinning attack. This is a 1080-degree spin attack, something I've never seen before outside of Taekwondo matches and demonstrations. Remember when Gibson landed a side kick to Oliver Miller's nuts earlier? Well, right after this strike being ruled a knockdown, with Miller going WTF to the ref, Gibson spun around, which for some reason got Miller to put up the Philly shell defense. I understand this though, because personally, I did try to use the Philly shell defense against an incoming car once. Regardless, the Philly shell does not defend against cars or the spinning hook kick, and landing it flush allowed Gibson to hit with a side kick right after as well. This fight really showed how powerful Gibson is. Even when a spinning kick was blocked, the opponent got blasted into the ground. In some fights, he can duck to avoid kicks or lean forward to evade them. This is a high risk move that only fighters with the best instincts and vision can pull off. To showcase just how smart Gibson is, in one of his fights, Gibson gets knocked down and somehow still takes his opponent down on the way to the floor. Overall, I would rank Manson Gibson as the most unpredictable and most awkward fighter of all time. He has perfected Sun Tzu's philosophy of being an inexhaustible, beginningless circle.
But Manson Gibson, Phil, once again, and to the viewer now, is a very awkward fighter. I've seen him come in the ring and kiss his opponent.
Yeah,
have to
absolutely.
stare down.
Pillar 5. Supreme confidence. If there's one trait that is necessary for becoming the best fighter in the world, it is supreme confidence. For a rising fighter with enough potential, they need to believe that they are capable of becoming the best. Once they rise to the top, they have to believe that they are the best fighter in the world. This is supreme confidence, something that both the Black Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee have. At the same time, we must balance supreme confidence with humility. After all self-belief must be backed up by reality, or it quickly becomes delusion.
I mean, it is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky, but to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, that, my friend, is very hard to do. And you have to train. You have to keep your reflexes so that when you want it, it's there. If I want to punch, I'm gonna do it, man, and I'm gonna do it, you see.
When you listen to Manson Gibson, it's easy to notice that he's fully embodied this philosophy and has supreme confidence grounded in reality.
5-0 Japan, 5-kick knockout. There's no fighter better than me in the world. Thai style is okay, but in America, they think Thais are the best. There hasn't been an American fighter to beat a Thai since Dale Cook. So now I am the one. Thai is best style. Thai is best style. Best fighters in the world.
He says he has the best spinning back fist in the world because he knows that's the truth.
The spinning back fist best in the world.
With an insane record, he can make these type of claims.
He's 49-0 in title defenses.
But he's also 97-6 overall record.
That's amazing.
Phil.
The best fighter in the mother world.
Even against the scariest Muay Thai fighter of his time, Chang Puek Gyasanret, he comes out like a big man. The only reason why he can do ballet spins in front of such a good fighter is because he is completely confident in his ability to not get hit, or withstand the shots if he does get hit. Against the greatest heavyweight of all time, Ernesto Hoost, Gibson was fearless. Despite getting thunderously nutshotted, he fought Hoost to a 3-round draw in a match that many think Gibson won. When they were going into an extension round, he fearlessly stared at Ernesto Hoost, ready for whatever happens next. By doing so, he shows no fear, and he's observing to see if the opponent is just as game. You see, to essentially throw nothing but spinning and sidekicks to the greatest heavyweight kickboxer of all time is something else. Gibson withstood all the brutal attempts to punish him with low kicks and clinch knees. This can only happen if he's made out of iron and has the confidence to pull off whatever he's doing. In Gibson's second fight with Chang Puek Gyasanret, he comes out dancing and looking as relaxed as ever. Before the fight, he says the keys to victory was patience, controlling the tempo, and then hitting a knockout in the later rounds. And that's exactly what happened. Right before the first round begins, he even poses in a way showcasing his readiness.
And there you see Manson. You never know what you're going to get.
Then he spends the whole round dancing around Cecil Peoples, the guy who doesn't believe in low kicks. I bet he would believe in low kicks if he got hit by one from Chang Puek. Anyways, with the crowd booing, Gibson didn't care.
And the people begin to laugh and boo at the same time.
He could only keep doing this if he was completely confident in his game plan. Knowing to respect Chang Puek and not go head to head with him in the first round takes humility and wisdom. Even when Chang Puek delivered a thunderous nutshot to the Black Bruce Lee, he only briefly padded the cut before carrying on with his game plan. This, my friends, is supreme confidence balanced with humility. Throughout the first round, he lets Chang Puek lead with strikes. The referee even got pissed at Gibson for using him as a shield, but the Black Bruce Lee answers to no one. Even when Cecil Peoples kept saying his name, Gibson ignored him with a cheeky smirk, then winking at the camera right after.
But you know, the fighter's going to fight his fight, Phil, although he can't be running behind the referee and hiding behind him.
You can see how much he sticks to the game plan by his change of clothes in this round. The Master Blaster took the kickboxing pants off and put on the tight shorts which said Blaster. Now he is ready to masterfully bait his opponent in and then masterfully blast them away. In this round, he comes out throwing his usual spinning moves, landing them right away. Chang Puek slams him to the nuts again, but as always, the Black Bruce Lee kept on fighting. Now Gibson is not afraid to trade, and giving Chang Puek the false confidence of continuing to come forward was exactly what he wanted. Not taking any steps back, Chang Puek got baited into standing still against a spinning back kick, resulting in a perfect knockout. Gibson was not surprised at all that it landed, and he celebrated with a jump and laying on the floor right after. This was his 100th career victory, and what better way to capture it than knocking out the great Chang Puek Gyasanret.
100th career victory.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Manson Gibson gave it up. Tonight he established that 100th win against a great fighter.
All of this confidence is only possible if it is backed up by reality.
I mean, it is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky, but to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, that, my friend, is very hard to do.
Due to all of his natural giftedness and training, the Black Bruce Lee doesn't just have iron nuts or iron legs, he also has an iron chin. When an opponent lands a back fist, they are the one who falls over. In the corner, he is often all smiles, even when he misses a punch and sends himself flying, because he's too explosive. He gets back into the fight and remains super game. This is how he could lose an entire fight against Johnny Davis, but still find the tornado left hook late into the fight and win it. Just listen to his confidence before the fight.
Tonight I am fighting Johnny Davis, one of the distinguished ISK champions. I'm glad to get the opportunity to fight one of the great champions. This is my time to show just how good I am. This is my opportunity to be one of the greatest middleweight champions of the world.
It is easy for many fighters to be delusionally confident, which is called arrogance. But that was not the Black Bruce Lee. He was simply great, and that is only possible if there's humility too. In the post-fight interview, he was humble and admitted how he would have lost if the fight ended sooner.
You probably would have walked out of here the loser. Yeah, I think so. I had to pull it through the end. We both were champions. He gave me a very good fight. But he started to give up a little bit. He started to give up a little bit of his determination. So I had to just try to pull through, sir.
To lose a fight for almost the entire 9 rounds, then come back and pull through takes a special fighter with unwavering belief in himself. In this special rules fight against Yoji Anjo, it was takedown galore. But despite fighting against a much bigger opponent, Gibson eventually finds a way to defend the takedowns by sprawling. He then kept this position for what seemed like 5 minutes. After the fight, Gibson shows his confidence again.
Godzilla! 96. Come on, Bruce Lee. Come on. Hulk Hogan next. Ooh. And go. Number 1, shoot boxing. Now UWF wrestler. Bad. Black bad. A man. Superman. Yes. Time out.
So there you have it. This is the 5 legendary pillars of the Black Bruce Lee. The Master Blaster, the Thai Slayer. What do you find most impressive about him? For me, it's how he fully embodied the philosophy of both Sun Tzu and Bruce Lee through his artistic expression in the ring. Above all else, he is a good person.
I like every time we have done a Manson Gibson fight, he has just been such a friendly, just a nice person to be around.
He is, and he does a lot for the youth in Chicago. He'll let them come and train in his gym free of charge. He believes in giving back to the community. That's a unique person. I mean, there needs to be more people that are willing to give back to the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try to stay humble. Sometimes losing is a good thing. Losing can make you a winner. You can succumb to that. Don't be boastful and brag. Win or lose, we shared our life together. So I'm happy. 12 world titles, 2-time Hall of Famer, won on 3 weight divisions. I ain't mad at nobody. You know, I enhance people's minds. I think I'm kind of like a black role model. Count your blessings and say your prayers. Tomorrow ain't promised to us, so live every day like the last.
Thank you for watching another episode of Lawrence Kenshin Striking Breakdowns. The best way you can support us is by watching another episode. If you have thoughts on the great Manson Gibson, share with me in the comment section. I want to understand your perspectives on the Black Bruce Lee.